Arsenal fans. Hey, it's been a minute, innit? It's been a minute since we've had a serious number 9. Viktor Gyökeres has been confirmed as an Arsenal footballer and specifically a striker. He's wearing the 14, VG14, Gyokeres, all of that sort of stuff. Say what you want about my team. We got a Swedish striker. Certain men are losing theirs. Certain men are gassing up Liam Delap. Certain men are still chatting shit about Joshua Zertsky and them kind of boy. Like, I don't know about what's going on over there. But what I do know is that Arsenal Football Club have confirmed the signing of Gyokeres. We've known this been the case. Artig is lit. Yeah, but you know what you need to do. You're doing crazy things, man. I can't sleep, bro. Still having goosebumps. You know the vibes, man. Viktor Gyökeres has finally become an Arsenal footballer. We have a striker that has the traits of a forward of the modern day, with also being a classic throwback to a number 9 or a typical forward. He's like a bulldozer. He can affect the game in terms of general play, drift into midfield, work the channels, pin and occupy centre halves. Most importantly, putting the ball in the back of the net. He's a forward we've needed. You know, the deal makes sense. You can have your opinions, whether you think he was the best option or not. Whatever you have to say, he plays for Arsenal Football Club. The numbers don't lie. The numbers look sensational. His frightening physical profile and his ability to, you know, finish in several different situations inside the box and affect the game without scoring is very satisfying on the eye. And it presents Arsenal with an opportunity to finally put to bed the forward kind of scenario. We've needed a striker for the longest period of time. I do think it's high risk, high reward in certain elements, but let me kind of paint a picture for you. There are some burning questions naturally. How does his all or nothing game translate into the Premier League? Will he be able to take his experiences of the Portuguese league and the Championship and correlate that to the Premier League? And if he can do that, will he be the kind of forward Arsenal need, people? We all know the rate at which his stock has risen since he left Brighton for Coventry in 2021 and then from Coventry to Sporting in the summer of 2023 has been astonishing and astounding, if I'm honest with you. He arrives at Arsenal 27 years of age, playing for a team that's one of the better teams in Europe and in the Premier League, and playing in one of Europe's major leagues. Naturally, there's going to be questions around the profile of the player, and as said earlier, will he be able to make the step up and thrive in the Premier League? And also, how will he fit into Arsenal's tactical plan? Arsenal are signing, whatever people have to say at this moment in time, one of the most coveted strikers in Europe. So he's 97 goals in 102 games in 2 years in Portugal is crazy. I believe he got 54 and 52 last season, people. He also helped Sporting win back-to-back league titles in a Portuguese Cup. So he does have experience, does have winning experience. When you look at his show reel of goals, whether it be from his time at Coventry or Sporting Lisbon, a number of themes emerge. The first is how many are a result of, you know, explosive and dynamic runs in behind the opposition's defense. That space naturally will be harder to come by, given Arsenal on a weekly basis face defensive mid, low and deep blocks in the Premier League. So it goes deeper than just signing players in terms of, you know, improving us in a creative sense and in the final third, but it does help signing someone of this pedigree. The second, naturally, is the intelligence and speed of Gyokeres' movement around and in the penalty box. He's able to, you know, sniff a yard in tight spaces, has laser-like precision, able to find the bottom corners or the right area of a goal with both feet. He's clearly his physicality is something which entices us. There are also some very good passages of play in which he holds off or turns a defender from nothing more than a hopeful long ball forward before barreling away and putting the ball in the back of the net. One thing I like about him, he might not appear the quickest on paper, but when he gets into his full flow, he's very difficult to stop, people. There's a lot to like about him, people, especially where you look at some of the statistics around the percentiles that he scores in, people. You know, the data available to all of us during Viktor Gyökeres' time at Sporting shows he had an elite level season at Sporting in the Portuguese Cup and League, people. When you look at his statistics, he was in the 98th percentile for non-penalty goals, which just shows he scores more from open play than not, people. 98% of strikers, apologies, in other leagues. He's in the 97th percentile, people, for non-penalty XG, which simply put shows he gets into goal scoring positions better than almost everybody, people. His expected goals without penalties are also super high because, you know, he did score 18 or so penalties. You're never getting that in the Premier League for Arsenal Football Club, which is why we need to focus on the goals that don't come from penalties. He's in the 95th percentile for goal conversion. That shows when he gets chances, simply put, he's efficient and he's very clinical. Aerial duels, he's in the 76th percentile. He wins headers better than most strikers and he's strong in the air, although clearly he's not as strong at heading despite his physical qualities and his height than in certain other scenarios, people. Touches in the box. Now, Mikel Arteta is going to have to find a way to get our striker in a position for him to do such, people. But it shows he lives and thrives in the opposition's penalty box and is consistently active in and around such, people. Expected assists show that he's not just a goal scorer, he creates them too. He's in the 90th percentile for such. And offensive duels won, something which is massive to Mikel Arteta. He's in the 98th percentile, which shows he's great in 1v1 battles with defenders and physically dominant. He played 3,087 minutes, which also shows his fitness and his reliability. He's almost played every game. So there's a lot to like. There's a lot to obviously be enticed by how he affects the game with and without the ball. Clearly, Gyokeres is a baller. Clearly, from the statistics and the eye test, we see a top-level striker who's all-rounded and doing almost everything right. Again, and on the topic of affecting the game without scoring, he ranks in the top 20% of strikers for possession-adjusted pressures. You know me, I don't like statistics, but I don't hate them. That just shows me you'll press and work from minute 0 to minute 90, which is the minimum. It shows he maintains a high pressing intensity even in a dominant team. Now, typically we're on the front foot of games. We press well. So that shows beyond just what we really care about as fans, goals, he can help us. Defensive duels as well. He's in the top 25% of strikers. He engages in duels more frequently than many top tier forwards and wins a lot of them, especially in the opponent's half. On the topic of that, ball recoveries in the final third are above average for a striker. It shows he's effective at regaining possession in dangerous areas, which is a key trait for the high modern day pressing intensity that not only Arsenal but many teams deploy. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, David Raya is actually our first attacker. Or why would we care about what he can do with his feet and the passing lanes he might offer the centre backs? Martin Odegaard and typically Kai Havertz, now Gyokeres, are our first defenders, because why would you want to press from the front and set up traps and all of those kind of things? Offensive duels, when you combined it with pressing, he's in the 98th percentile in offensive duels won, which this statistic simply shows it blends someone that is physically pressing and attacking with aggression. It shows he doesn't just chase shadows, he disrupts oppositions and he wins. Now, when you do some deep diving into Viktor Gyökeres, you can see several people within the footballing space, whether it be former players, managers that have worked with him, singing his praises. Just look at what Marco Silva said. But then you also have some doubters. I'm not talking about those that have, fairly legitimate questions. I'm talking about the agenda-driven lovers. Rio Ferdinand being one of them, in which he has spoken about. Let's be honest, within Arsenal's fan base, I was a fan of Sesko, I still am, but there's Sesko lovers that just love statistics and they can't comprehend the fact that we've gone against the grain and gone for a striker that probably wasn't on our lottery ticket in the summer. Simply put, stats pricks who can't do 10 kick-ups and never played football. Rightly so, people are going to say, okay, he's done it in the Championship, he's done it in Portugal, can he do it in the Premier League or a top division? And there's obviously, it's very different. Obviously, he played for a dominant team in Sporting, but it's very different playing for, the top end of the Premier League week in, week out in England. You look at how Arsenal afforded a lot of space in Europe versus in England, and that might pose a question. I would also say, completely off topic, but in relation to Gyokeres, I'm not saying don't have question marks over the player or pros and cons and stuff that you want to see and things of that ilk. But any issues around, can he thrive in low blocks? Is he good on the transition? Surely that's not just with him individually. Collectively at Arsenal, these are things that are afforded, which is why I say, as much as I like the addition of Gyokeres, there's stuff that Mikel Arteta has to do to adapt, evolve the system, and obviously put Gyokeres in conditions the man will thrive. Now, we've all seen the Opta stuff where they did the league average team power rating, in which the Portuguese league is ranked lower than actually the Belgium league, and also the traditional top 5 European leagues, which is okay, all right. And you can mock the teams he has scored against in the Champions League, or look at his statistics in the Portuguese league against some of the bigger teams, and yeah, rightly so, that is a question mark. But if he's done it in the Champions League to some degree and he's done it in Portugal, people always conveniently miss out that on the same said graph you can see in front of me, the Championship, which is ranked higher than the Portuguese league and just outside the traditional European league. So he's done it in the Portuguese league, he's done it in the Championship. he hasn't been provided an opportunity to do it in the Premier League. And you look at several strikers that have done it in the Championship of various degrees: the Watkins, the Harry Kanes, the Jamie Vardys, the list goes on. Gerard Bowen, that have all had a variety of success in the Premier League. Surely that gives food for thought, people. Above all, the man's mentality. He's had highs and lows in his career. It's worked out at some places, it hasn't. And at 27, he's got that balanced kind of mindset. He clearly thrives on doubters. He thrives on pressure, and that's what you need. Pressure makes diamonds, or it bursts pipes, and we need people like this. For me, Gyokeres fits the system in terms of the physical profile we're looking at. He might not be what you'd expect on paper, but I think he's a good forward for us. He may not be afforded the same freedom in the Premier League that he was afforded in Portugal, but his want to score, his want to adapt, his mentality, his ability to affect the game without scoring, and to put the ball in the back of the net, also his powerful shot speed and ability to spin away from defenders, should make the transition kind of easier. Where you look at his record of 97 goals across the last 2 campaigns for Sporting, you can't scoff at that. And he also offers energy without the ball. Clearly, the key question will be how Gyokeres, whose biggest asset is sprinting in behind and into the channels to pull defenses apart, helps Arsenal against deep and disciplined low blocks and in compact and compressed spaces. His first touch isn't necessarily the greatest, and he's not necessarily the most prolific in the air. Nobody's perfect, people. He doesn't strike me as someone that gives the impression of being weighted down by expectations, if I'm honest. The 6'2" former Brighton and Hove Albion and Coventry City player is, that for me, I keep saying it, is a one-man battering ram who plunders goals at a faster rate than many strikers in Europe, people. Last season, it was 1.25 per 90. Naturally, yes, people are going to look at the strikers that were in Portugal that haven't correlated what they were doing in the Portuguese league to the Premier League, the Tarimis, the Nunez's. I wouldn't extend this to him, but also Ivan Nilsson, Carlos Vinicius, and many people on the list, people. But they also conveniently forget that on that same said list, Gyokeres also scored a lot more goals than any of the other players managed in Portugal. In fact, the only other player in the last 20 years to score at least 39 goals in a season in one of Europe's top 10 leagues are Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, and Robert Lewandowski. Now, clearly, Gyokeres has a long way to go before he can be compared to them, but it shows you're doing all right. Clearly, people, another potential legitimate concern is he scored a large number of his goals against teams that finished lower in the table. Despite averaging 1.18 goals per game in the Portuguese division in 2024-25, he only managed 2 goals in 8 games against teams that finished between 2nd and 5th in the table, while 17 of his 39 goals, which ranks at about 43.6%, came in games against 7 games, against the bottom 4. He did also come clutch in the final for them, people. He did also find the net against Leão, Stuttgart, and Leipzig in the Champions League, and also got a hat-trick against Manchester City. 2 of those goals did come from the penalty spot. A decent portion of Gyokeres' goals last season came from the penalty spot. I'm not begrudging him for scoring pens. What do you want our striker not to do? Not be clinical from the spot. And we saw last season, if we had a guy that could score from the penalty spot, we might have gone all the way in the FA Cup. But that being said, if you did get 18, 19 penalties and score them at Sporting, we're not even going to get 18, 19 penalty VAR checks. So that is food for thought, people. Even if there is an element of Gyokeres being a flat track bully and we want to see him do it in the bigger games, maybe that's exactly what Arsenal probably need, because it's been against the lower teams where we have struggled, people. We all know Kai Havertz was our top goal scorer with 9 goals last season, in which he was injured. It's the first time since 1923-24 we didn't have a player to score at least 10 league goals in the campaign. Now, over the last 2 campaigns, maybe even 3, my maths is poor, Kai has pulled his weight in a goal scoring sense more than probably all his teammates, barring Bukayo Saka, which is testament to Kai Havertz. But also asks a question of Arsenal Football Club, what are we doing here? So what we can't sit here and deny is that Gyokeres isn't an upgrade on what we have. And I'm not being funny. If Marino, Kai Havertz and Cole can thrive and score goals, why can't he? But I do think there's a wider question, maybe for another video, around how Mikel Arteta can improve us in the final third. Also, why I like this signing as well is it forces Arteta to adapt and evolve. It forces both parties. Gyokeres is going to meet Arteta halfway, what he demands for a striker, but also Arteta, you do need strikers that fit the system. But if I'm calling for us to be unpredictable, unconventional, maybe you need players that on script
on paper, don't sing from the same hymn sheet or are not from the same script, because it forces Arteta to adapt to him, maybe provide new kind of stuff for our team, and ultimately be harder for the opposition to read people. I got a lot of time for Gyokeres, people. There may be perhaps a want to score more goals against the lower teams as well. We only, Arsenal only scored the joint fifth most goals versus the bottom half sides last season in the Premier League, behind Liverpool, Brentford, and Manchester City. And we drew 5 games against bottom half opponents. We also scored at least once against all 19 league opponents last season. There were teams in which obviously we struggled to break down and we dropped vital points. So maybe this guy can help us in that. Even if Gyokeres doesn't score at anything like the incredible rate he had in Portugal, as long as he can add enough of a goal threat that allows Arsenal to, reclaim some of these said lost points on paper, it might just be worth it, people. Again, to go over him as well, 6'2", broad shoulders, physically on paper, made for the Premier League, almost like a throwback striker, a physical presence who can bulldoze his way to goal and shake off defenders in the process, which is not entirely an accurate description because he's also a creator, people. He has carved out the most chances from open play in the Portuguese division last season than anybody else, and only 4 players had more assists than him with the 6 he got, people. A lot of his chance creation came from running with the ball, people, which is obviously great. Only 2 players in the Portuguese top flight attempted more than his 103 dribbles last season. So on paper, he might not look like someone that does that, but he's got the ability to do that, people. He also ranks 3rd for long progressive carries, carrying the ball at least 10 meters up the field behind a couple of Benfica defenders, people. Carasas, who's gone to Real Madrid, and former Manchester City man Otamendi. So yeah, it shows that he can do things. And it shows that there's something to like about the guy. He's not just a goal scorer, he's a creator too. If you can score a lot of goals, assists, score penalties, score a lot of variety of goals, you run into channels, you can affect the game without scoring, you can dominate the game with scoring. And he does love to drive and bully defenders. So above everything, why would you not like him, people? His running also makes it easier for other people to thrive as well. He can bring other players into game. His approach to the striker role is uncompromising, centered on repeated intense runs and playing with intensity and brute force. Really, there's a lot to like about him. Unfortunately for Arsenal Football Club, just 32.9% of our attacking touches came in the left third of the pitch, people, which was our lowest portion of any Premier League team. Simply put, you lot know that we struggle off the left hand side, and those problems still remain. We've got 43% on the right, 24% down the middle, and 33% on the left, which shows that Arteta needs to improve us in the final third and off the left. But then if we struggle on the left, he pulls out to the left-hand side. Surely, in theory, this is something that can help us. Again, he's also quick in the transition. Another area Arsenal struggle at. We rank extremely low for converting possession into fast attacks, people, as you can see on the graphic on screen. And also, we're on the topic of low blocks. Gyokeres, in theory, can't change that. But against deep blocks, maybe he can switch positions and provide fluidity. For example, him and Martinelli, if Martinelli's on the left, just to keep defenders honest and guessing, they could occupy each other's roles for a moment. As on the topic of mentality, he's shown he's a late bloomer. Throughout his career to date, he's been a bit of a late bloomer, but maybe he's just on time for Arsenal. And where you look at some of his coaches, they speak of an intense desire to want to improve, someone that doesn't want to leave the training pitch and things of that ilk, man. He's not just a flat track bully. He's a clutch striker, strong enough for the weekly grind, technical enough for Europe, and hungry enough when the lights are the brightest, people. Keen to thrive on the big stage, score big goals, and create havoc. He's shown that he can provide in clutch moments and dominate domestically. He scored and assisted in the Portuguese Cup final, for God's sake. And he also scored a number of goals in tight-knit big game clashes for Sporting throughout last season, people. So, yeah, what is there not to like about this man? Seriously, I can't understand it. A few thoughts. Let's be honest. Mikel Arteta has attacking issues to sort out way beyond just simply signing new signings. I would like to ask you a question. If you believe differently, fair enough. But do you believe our issues around attack are simply centered around new additions and we put those players onto the pitch and everything's sorted? Or is there fundamental issues with how we play, people, which I think you lot would all agree? So simply put, it's not just a case of putting better players in. We all know that Arsenal wanted that's not happening. Sesko, that's not happening. You don't always get what you want. but still you have to make it work. Gyokeres has to have been liked and signed off by everybody, including Mikel Arteta, and we accept him for his pros and cons. Now, of course, Gyokeres is coming to a new league. He's going to have to adapt. There's issues that he's going to have to sort out off his own back. But let's be honest, this man has shown that he could bag goals in Europe for Sporting, and he's also done it in the Championship. So if he does come to Arsenal and he doesn't score goals, of course, there's question marks of Gyokeres off his own back. But then also you have to ask questions of Mikel Arteta. Let's be brutally honest, people. Out of our existing options, whether you like them or not, are we truly getting the best out of them in an attacking sense? Gyokeres is 27. He's ready to go. What you see is what you get. That doesn't mean we can't improve him and all of those sort of things, but I think he's got a solid base to thrive at this football club. A proven goal scorer with the mentality and the hunger to want to play at this level. Is backed up by stats as well for the stats lovers. He is a bulldozer, a Swedish bulldozer. There's a lot more to him than just being a bulldozer. Of course, his general play, but I want him in goal scoring scenarios. I want to see him bully. I want to see him in his own way lift Arsenal Football Club to where we belong, which is finally getting over the line. Am I wrong? The signing of Gyokeres leaves me with several thoughts. The first would be how we got here. Now, we know it's a typical thing in the modern game to be able to pivot. We know once upon a time, Isak was the dream, and that never happened. We know at one point, Sesko became the dream, and that never happened. Now we're here with Gyokeres. I think it's high risk, high reward, because obviously he's 27, he's entered his prime, he's got a solid grounding in good and bad moments. What you see is what you get. And in many ways, despite a lot of teams wanting him, there's still an element of doubt internally with some Arsenal fans, and externally with, can he correlate the Championship goal scoring exploits and likewise with the Portuguese league into the Premier League, in which that's kind of romantic from an Arsenal perspective, because we always find the players that make the difference for us in that regards, there's always some element of doubt, or they're kind of down on their luck or whatever, and I'll always support him because his agent, they've done everything to make this move happen. It just makes sense for me, people. When I think about him, I just think of mentality and hunger. And it's high risk, high reward in that this isn't a typical Mikel Arteta system striker, but sometimes in life, you have to do different things. Variety is the spice of life. If we want different results, we need to do different things. So yeah, on the topic of Viktor Gyökeres, you'll see on screen, I have done more in-depth analysis over the last year on the guy. So check out those. Let's hope he starts banging in the goals, man. Like and subscribe.